I should mention we can edit things out.
All right, so NSF Broader Impacts. And I know you all have seen Steve talked about kind of the overall NSF, and so I won't go through the whole structure of it and how to, from start to beginning, do a proposal and submission. But of course, if you have questions about that, you can definitely ask along the way. I'll focus on broader impacts though. And so just to give you some background of my experience with the NSF, I was a program officer there from 2021 to 2023, so a rotating program officer in the Division of Undergraduate Education, DUE. So that's in the DUE division within the Education Directorate. And so I worked on programs that are education oriented. One of them is IUSE, Improving Undergraduate STEM Education, which can be very broad. Pretty much any project with the aim of improving undergrad STEM education could apply there. And then I also worked on a program called STEM, Scholarships in STEM. We currently have one of those projects here that I'm a PI of. Our students in the program, it's called JSTEMU. They're students who get scholarships and other supports, and it's specifically oriented towards low-income, academically talented STEM students. And so I worked on that. I was a co-lead on that program, and then also worked on a program called NOICE, which is Scholarships for Future STEM Teachers. So those were the kind of areas that were. So it was not so much my background's mathematics. I wasn't like Ravi working in the mathematics and physical sciences division or directorate. I was in the education one. So I think what's nice is between Steve and Ravi and myself, you're getting three very different kind of flavors of experiences from the NSF. And so what I experience with panels can be very different than how they work in those other divisions. Okay. So jumping right into the proposal review side of things, all proposals at the NSF, regardless of directorate, division, program, are evaluated on their intellectual merit and broader impacts. Those are the two main criteria. And so Ravi was talking about intellectual merit. I'm going to talk about broader impacts, but really for both of them, reviewers are asked to address these 5 questions. And they don't necessarily in their reviews have this specific question and respond to that exact prompt, but they're all given these questions and are supposed to be framing their reviews around these. And so even though we're considering 2 different criteria, intellectual merit being potential to advance knowledge, broader impacts being potential to benefit society, that's pretty broad, or contribute to the achievement of specific desired societal outcomes, again, pretty broad. That can mean a lot of things. For either of those criteria, we're looking at potential for it to happen. To what extent do the proposed activities suggest and explore creative, original, or potentially transformative concepts? So this is basically asking, is it novel? Is what's being proposed novel? Is it a reasonable plan? Do you think they've actually thought through things and are going to be able to get from start to finish successfully? And do they have a mechanism to assess success? So some kind of maybe project evaluation. How well qualified is the individual team or institution? So it's kind of like at JMU, if someone's submitting a proposal about, I guess, along with broader impacts, that they are going to be working with urban students and doing stuff in an urban setting. It's like, well, JMU is not exactly in an urban setting, so maybe that doesn't make sense. And so is it, do you have the equipment you need? Do you have the context you need? And is the individual really kind of ready to do, have they shown that they're ready to do this research? Are there adequate resources available? So that could be facilities, resources, human resources, financial resources, all of those sort of things. So these are the questions, and these are still given to reviewers both in the PAPPG, the PAPG document, as here's what you're going to be evaluated on in your proposal, And on the reviewer panel, this is what they're given as guidelines. Yesterday, I went to the NSF website. I wanted to wait to make sure just in case things change. This is what they currently have to describe broader impacts. That's still up, and I guess is the latest and greatest for broader impacts. So you can see there's kind of different areas that you can consider for broader impacts. Anything from the education side of things, which is again more my background, to maybe building partnerships with industries, thinking about national security. You know, all of these could be broader impacts. So I thought we'd stop here and just go ahead and start thinking about, well, what is a specific example of one of these broader impacts types? Like if we wanted to think about STEM workforce, how could that actually play out in a project? What do you think?
Creating opportunities for undergraduate research or
Yeah.
training, applied research.
Yeah, you could have a project like an REU that is very much just, this is about undergrad research, and so it's both a broader impact. They're hopefully going to go on into the STEM workforce, but also more direct. But it could also be you're just doing your research in math or engineering or whatever, and maybe you include as part of this an undergrad student and funding for them, or a grad student or a postdoc or whatever, and there you have a broader impact, right? What about public engagement? I'll give you an example of this, also connected to REUs. Our chemistry REU here, specifically, and it's not just for the NSF funded, it's just kind of all the research students can do this. They have workshops throughout the summer where they kind of train the students for how to do outreach to the community, kids, adults in the community, and then they go to the Harrisonburg Farmers Market and have a booth and actually do experiments or just, you know, some sort of demos trying to showcase their research. And so the students are thinking about how can I communicate my research to the general public, and that's a benefit both to the student, because they're having to learn how to communicate and be around other people, but also to the general public, that they're engaging with science and math, or STEM. I say science and math a lot since that's my college, but yeah. So these are the main categories as the NSF is currently describing them. And if you go to, if you just Google NSF Broader Impacts, I think that's what I did, and I got to this. Now this is the website, so you can see where I got that screenshot. Below that says, okay, now you can explore examples that they've picked out along these lines, like building STEM talent. They give some examples here, and then if you click on one of them, it'll go to a specific project or program and describe it. So there are some examples there on the website if you want to see what the NSF itself is promoting at this point. There we go. Okay. Well, let's talk about some of the changes in the last year. Starting with what hasn't changed, at least yet, again, those two merit criteria, merit review criteria. Intellectual merit, broader impacts, that's still the main two. And even the 5 questions, the 5 questions that had to do with both of those that are given to all reviewers and are included in the path sheet. Specifically for broader impacts, there's still a criterion of it has to benefit society and contribute to advancement of specific desired societal outcomes. So very kind of general, vague statement. So that's still what it says. Here I have a bullet point about broadening participation, and that is still part of the NSF mission. It is a congressional mandate, but you might notice I also have that over here as something that's changed. Because to me, even though it's technically still mandated, the way it's being enacted and described has changed. They have put limitations on, you can't be targeting broadening participation to certain underrepresented groups, like you can't specifically target it towards women, minorities, people from certain socioeconomic groups. There's language about that, and they're targeting certain things around that. So that one's kind of in both categories. There's definitely restrictions on themes. I mean, there's executive orders about DEI and kind of multiple scenarios, and that's certainly been implemented at the NSF. So you would not want to, at this point, specifically talk about DEI in a proposal. It would not be likely to get funded. Similarly, for a while, things like culturally relevant, this is in that kind of education realm where I was living, culturally relevant pedagogy or content, that would probably not go over super well at this point. The panel orientation slides for reviewers have changed. There's always a panel orientation that kind of goes over how the panel is going to work, those kind of two basic criteria and questions, and describes for that panel, you know, how ratings are done and stuff like that, you know, the general process. But at least with the last panel I did, which has been in 2025, there were a bunch of new slides that all panels have to go over. Some of them have to do with broader impacts. Some have to do with the Hatch Act. So one had to do with emphasizing that the recommendations of the review panel are advisory only, which has always been the case, but now they're really pushing it to advisory only, and you know, award decisions can be made that don't follow that advice. So new slides. Programs and solicitations have changed. Some programs have been pulled. Like I mentioned, I worked on the noise program. That one's no longer active. It was pretty much immediately taken down. The racial and equity program immediately went away back in January. And solicitations, the language in them has been updated, and things are still kind of in flux there. What could change? I mean, they haven't changed the merit criteria yet. I suppose they could. I haven't heard anything about that happening, but I'm not at the NSF anymore, so who knows. There could be more program solicitation changes, and there's definitely been things in the news about who's making the actual award decisions. At one point they were talking about DOJ, people being in that position to have to say the final yes to any awards. I don't know that that's actually happened, but that was in the works. And so, but the what could change is kind of who knows. I don't know. Nobody really knows, I feel like. So that's where things stand. All right. So this is something that they're telling people at the NSF now, and it's not really changing. I don't know. I guess they're trying to be more clear about what broader impacts means at this point. So it can be accomplished through the research itself. That could lead to a broader impact. It could be activities directly related to it, or activities that are more indirectly and complementary. So that might be you include outreach to the community, and that's just part of the project directly. It could be that you're involving an undergrad researcher who will then hopefully go on to be in the STEM workforce, and that's maybe a little more indirect. So this is something they're trying. That's one of our chemistry research, and then that's the chemistry folks at the county fair doing their outreach stuff. This is something else that was added. to be shared with reviewers. Increasing economic, so this is not, they say not a comprehensive or prescriptive list, but it's giving examples of what could be broader impacts. So economic competitiveness, health and welfare, national defense, partnerships, STEM workforce, public scientific literacy and engagement, that's the outreach side of things, broadening participation. And again, that's still congressionally mandated. So, that's the last slide. Then I thought we'd just talk through what your all's projects are and who, I don't think I know some people in here. I don't know every